Hi everyone, we are team A2. My name is Cameron and my teammates Kalani, Ava, and Kieran will be sharing with you a little bit about Uber. So for a little background on the history of the overall rideshare industry in the United States, which we've divided up into 5 phases as shown here. As you can see, the evolution of ride sharing is directly related to the evolution of technology. So beginning over 80 years ago in the World War II era, as an attempt to conserve vital resources, carpooling has evolved into a widely used mode of transportation in all parts of the world. Park and ride facilities and HOV lanes came to be in the 1970s and are still in use today. As you can also see, the integration of technology with ride sharing began in the 1990s and has since become something that we can do from our fingertips through enterprises such as Lyft and Uber. There are a few key trends that have remained persistent since the birth of the rideshare industry. Carpooling has always intended to be an accessible, reliable, and safe mode of transportation. In more recent times, rideshare has become a cheaper and oftentimes preferred alternative to the traditional yellow taxi business. In addition, growing awareness of the implications caused by traffic congestion and fossil fuels has kept the environmental protection trend alive as well. Most importantly, the integration and interoperability of technology within the rideshare industry has been the largest focal point for innovation and opportunity. As software advances, so does ride sharing. This is seen through the increased mobile app and website capabilities such as real-time location tracking, stored payment information, and easy modes of communication, just to name a few. We will now introduce our focal enterprise of choice within the rideshare industry, which is also the world's largest rideshare company, Uber.
So on the slide here is a company overview of Uber. This is a lean business model canvas, but some of the key partners that Uber leverages to um, be so dominant in this industry are their drivers, other restaurants that they partner through their programs such as Uber Eats, and then national chains, as well as their investors and lobbyists on the funding and legal side of the equation. Their key resources are twofold. It's their drivers as well as their rider base. Um, Uber is a facilitatory two-sided marketplace, and as a result of this, you need to have a solid user base on both sides of the equation to make sure that the relationships prosper. In addition to these human assets, they also have data assets in the form of ride data in terms of understanding how to surge price, also understanding what movement trends are looking like within a certain geographic area, or even just how movement is evolving over time. They also have technology assets, which are continuing to be refined, different AI and machine learning models that they're training on all of these data assets, as well as the brand itself. Looking at the company from a cost perspective, there's a lot of different things that go into their cost of revenue, but they need to make sure that their legal liability is minimized. So that comes in the form of insurance, both for the drivers and for the riders. They also have payment processing. Um, Most of the money that flows through needs to be handled in a certain way to make sure that it gets to the banks um, as safely as possible. They also have a lot of information technology infrastructure that they need to optimize. And as a result of this, there's a lot of overhead for staffing. In terms of research and development, you may have heard about Uber's push towards autonomous vehicles. Um, that's only one example of different R&D endeavors that Uber has ventured into. And even though they've since sold that business off, they're always trying to innovate for the future, and that incurs a lot of cost as well. Sales and marketing can really take up a lot of their initial gross profit. Trying to continuously generate new riders as well as new drivers requires a lot of incentives on both sides of the equation. Um, when it flows through to their actual revenue, uh, the three main levers that we focused on were the rides, where they take a flat 25% commission on all rides, as well as the Uber Eats business, where they take a cut as well. But that is variable and it ranges from 15 to 30%. And then Uber Freight, where they are moving larger quantities of items across the country. They also take different commissions, but that information isn't as readily available. And it's done more so on a company by company basis. There are various customer segments that Uber targets, but the general profile of a rider is a younger person who's more technology literate. They live in urban areas and they have medium to high income, which is required for them to have the disposable income to use the platform. On the other side of the equation with drivers, most of Uber's drivers are part time. They're doing it to supplement their income. And for the most part, they're male and college age or older. Um, the key activities that Uber is trying to undertake to improve the overall enterprise, it's centered around removing frictions, which will in turn improve customer experience. And then they want to continue to grow technical moat to differentiate themselves from other competitors in the space, expanding their presence in existing markets and growing to new ones as well. They use multiple channels to accomplish their sales and marketing. One of the strongest is word of mouth, closely followed by media coverage in their marketing. They also use other levers such as partnerships and discounts and promotions. But all of this adds up to Uber's overall value proposition, which is providing riders with an easily accessible ride to more or less anywhere they want to go through a simple mobile application. It also, through um, services like Uber Eats, gives them access to restaurants all around them, but in the convenience of their own home. For drivers on the other side of the equation, it allows them to create their own schedules, supplement their incomes, and work on their own time. Restaurants can also leverage their user network to reach more customers. And is this cut off? Yeah. But it it allows them to leverage their user network to reach more customers in their existing geographic areas. Okay, so here is a more graphical representation of that business model. As you can see, there's a lot of different factors that flow into this. So we'll just kind of start on the left side of the screen and work our way over. When you're a driver, you can be driving in many different contexts. You could be driving something like an Uber Pool. If you drive a higher end vehicle, you could be an Uber Black or dealing more with business clients rather than the more economically focused consumers. But as a rider, there's other options than having someone drive you around. You can use their e-bikes, or you may have seen Uber scooters in large metropolitan areas. Um, those are all connected to the Uber platform through their technology stack. And that same technology stack also facilitates their payments. It allows them to make insurance payments as well as set some of the details for each individual ride, like where you're being picked up, where you're being dropped off, how much you're being charged. Uber Air is another interesting idea that they've started to implement more recently, where they're trying to make air travel more accessible. They're looking at using VTOL, which will allow for virtual takeoff and landing. So even in condensed urban areas, you're able to get where you're going more quickly than ever. With Uber Eats, they have connections to their restaurant partners. They're allowed to work with more clients than ever really thought possible, rather than having one or two partners. If you go to a large metropolitan area like New York City, for example, you have dozens and dozens of restaurants right at your fingertips. Restaurants have continued to adapt to this, and many have started to use ghost kitchens as a way to supplement their cooking facilities to cope with the excess demand. Ghost kitchens are satellite kitchens where they focus exclusively on this type of order. Uber Freight, we also mentioned briefly as a supplementary business line where they focus on moving freight cross country. Um, they enable tracking and analytics through their platform as well. And then all the way on the right side of the screen, we can see that they have on-demand ride services, which you can use as a company to book rides for different clients or guests that are flying in to see you, making their experience with your company much more efficient, much cleaner, and much more enjoyable. That provides value to you while also giving Uber additional data and more partnerships. So that's a little bit of a different overview of Uber's business model and the component parts that make it such a dominant enterprise.
One primary area of interest for our team was looking at Uber as a mobile rideshare platform, what most commonly people think of when they think of the Uber platform as a whole. So we'll first go into exactly what all works and functions with the Uber rideshare platform. So as a rider, first you're going to be requesting a ride. You'd go into the app, whether that be on the Android or App Store. You enter your pickup location, your desired destination, and select what type of vehicle. As mentioned previously, there's many different types of Ubers out there, whether that be the more economically friendly, where you're sharing an Uber with somebody else, or a solo rider or a business professional who might spend a little bit more for the luxury through the application. As soon as you enter that in, you're matched with a driver, and the driver on their side of the app is presented with the estimated trip fare. So they have to estimate what they might be able to take home from that, and then they can choose to accept it. If the driver chooses to accept it, you both are entered into the ability to connect with one another. The rider on their end would see the overview of everything that they had requested, the pickup and destination time, the estimated pickup time that the driver would get to their location, as well as the driver details, as well as the car details, such as license plate number, color of car, and model, as well as they can message the driver. From the driver's side of it, they'd be able to figure out how far the destination is for their pickup, and maps would automatically work on their phone to get them where they need to go, as well as they can also message the rider. During pickup and the ride, once both the rider and driver are connected, they're able to obviously communicate freely in the car with one another, where the rider can specify additional stops if needed. They also both have in-app tracking to the final destination. So on the rider side, they can share that trip progress with a friend for additional safety, or they can also just make sure that the driver is going to take them where they initially requested. At the same time, they're both able to work with Uber support just in case something goes wrong with the application. But on the driver's side, most of their work comes done after they drop off the rider. They're able to rate the rider, as well as instantly figure out their pay information of what they received, as well as the tip. And the rider can also review and tip, whether that be during or after the ride. However, for different riders come different values, depending on the focal environment and the life experience of each user. So one primary area, as Kyron mentioned, was the urban areas. As these are highly populated, transportation can be a little bit tricky, and these individuals might use this more often. So Uber has a specific feature for them called the Ride Pass, which allows very frequent riders to have a 10% discount and other perks for a monthly fee of $25. So somebody who's taking an Uber multiple times a day on short trips might find this to be beneficial. Another focal environment is airports, as they're both business travelers as well as tourists. This allows individuals who are very unfamiliar with a new city the ease of navigation without the hassle of trying to deal with local transportation, such as a taxi or a bus or a metro system. For business travelers who might be on work and want more of a luxurious premium experience, they might choose Uber Select or Uber Black, where they can specify what temperature they want the car. They can have the driver wait for them an additional time if for some reason a meeting's slowed up, and be able to have more of their specifications met and more luxurious car overall. Tourists might use this and find this to be of value because it's a convenient way to explore a new city and see all over, as well as having an additional person to recommend different things to do in the area that is more familiar with that city or country even. One of the third focal environments we focus on is suburbs, as well as Uber has vastly reached not only urban areas, but also neighboring suburbs and those who might commute to work. So a lot of this value is added for the commuter who might want to look at Uber Express Pool. This offers them to be able to travel to work at a much cheaper rate as they would travel with others in their area by simply walking and meeting at a pickup point. This guarantees the rider to have a quick, efficient, easy pickup, as most of them guarantee a 2-minute arrival time to the request, as it's a common route, which is great for the commuter with wanting the familiarity and time schedule to get to work. This also is a benefit for families as it offers ease of travel with children or elderly. Somebody who might be a single parent might want to take an Uber just because of having somebody else to open the door and help get the children out of their car. Additionally, university campuses can find value for Uber as well, as some large campuses have really far walking distance for students. So whether that be poor weather or also the inability to get to class on time, a university student might use it for that, or to get to extracurriculars or part-time jobs off campus and internships. While there's a lot of value created to different user segments, there's also value created for drivers as they're provided the flexibility of working hours and location of work and ability to choose their own schedule. It allows a lot of people to have more of that work-life balance. They're also given the instant pay and gratuity option offered. So immediately after their ride, they're getting paid and they can choose to continue to further accept rides for the rest of the day or not. And then there's several modes of work, whether that be rideshare or food or grocery delivery from their car, bike, scooter, etc. to have. So whatever mode of travel and transport they have the ability to have a job. However, while there's so many great things that Uber offers to its users, there are a lot of things that could be enhanced or improved. Starting from the left side of the figure, we'll talk a little bit about the ecosystems and engagements for experiencers. One large piece we saw was greater transparency of information, whether that be driver rider safety, and suggestions and alternatives. A lot of it came down to, while the driver gets to provide feedback on the rider and rate them, the rider does not get to see the information passed along. So the rider's not able to see maybe why they were rated so poorly and have a poor rating and how they can improve, as well as making more intentional driver-rider pairings for an additional safety for the rider to be able to select their driver, of maybe having someone of similar gender or sexuality or background to enhance the comfortability and safety for the rider. And moving over to the right, if you look at meaningful relationships and networks, this is thinking about more engagement between riders who might be doing the Uber Express pool, so they can understand and learn more people in their immediate areas as collective riders. So rather than getting in a car full of random people, they're getting in a car that has a connection with others. But also on the driver side of things, being able to connect with drivers in the area and create more of a partnership there. But also with the driver-rider relationship, increasing their ability to select one another when they've had a good positive experience. On the platform side of things, advancing the software usage is one primary area to focus on, thinking more about personalized recommendations, whether that be a personalized car for an individual who has a physical disability and may need a handicapped car, or somebody who is looking for more specific services based off of their demographics of thinking about the rider driver pairing match and having that recommendation automatically pop up. An additional issue is there are a lot of scarce and plentiful drivers at different times, and that obviously depends on and affects the rate in which a rider might pay. So having an alert for both drivers of knowing when there is a need for work so that they can make the most amount of money at the same time, as well as for a rider to be able to better determine when they should be requesting a ride and if in advance. So that would be all coming down to the more integration of artificial intelligence as a whole into the overall system. And on the other side, with more of platforms and accessibility and inclusion rather than the physical aspect, thinking about when a driver and rider, while there is translation for chat feature, having more of a verbal translator option with direct connection when a driver were to call a rider if there is a language barrier or a disconnect between somebody who might be a native language speaker and somebody who's more maybe in an elementary or learning proficiency of that same language, and increasing the disability accommodations with those who are trouble of hearing or potentially blind as well, and creating a space where everybody has the understanding and ability to use the Uber platform to the best of their ability, even if those who are cognitively impaired.
So now we're going to move on to Uber Eats, which is a delivery service that has been bridged from Uber, and it uses the existing infrastructure already in place on the Uber app, which assigns drivers and has a large driver network. The process to order food has been simplified by using Uber Eats, and it's now quicker and more convenient than in the past. So we've identified 5 main focal environments to which there is value to use Uber Eats. First being restaurants. As I mentioned, restaurants who use Uber Eats no longer have to employ delivery drivers, which saves a lot of money. And they also find that the system can be easily integrated into their existing ordering system. They will now also have access to everybody on the Uber Eats platform, as before when they had used their own, they would have had to pay for marketing. And it's also very cost effective in other ways too. The next area is workplace and social events, and this is really good for corporate events and social events. You can place your orders ahead of time. It also cuts down on costs as far as delivery fees, and you can do multiple orders at multiple restaurants in one cart, and you can also give access to the cart to multiple people. Next is residential areas, and this is the same for Uber as a regular rideshare service. It's good for people with disabilities who don't have the ability to drive a car, or if they're homebound for any other reason. It's good for families who can make use of that multiple restaurant order capability too. The last focal environment is school campuses, because you don't need a car, and a lot of people who live on campuses and universities don't have cars. And then also, because Uber is a popular rideshare service, there are many cars available in the university areas usually. And then they also deliver all night long, which is one thing that also sets them apart from restaurants who would typically employ their own drivers. So obviously we've identified all of these different environments, but on either side of each environment are the orderers and the delivery drivers, restaurants aside. So orderers will find that it's quick and convenient, which is very valuable. There's frequent promotions going on. You can even buy a monthly premium pass, which will help you save money on delivery fees and then offer you different discounts routinely. There's a lot of options within the app. I think it's about a 20-mile radius that you can order from, which when you live in a city is a lot of restaurants. And then the last thing is time saving, because obviously everything is instantaneous and delivery is very quick. As for delivery drivers on the other side, it's instant payment. It's the same system that's used for the rideshare service, and it's easy to start if you're already an Uber driver. And they have that flexibility of the gig type income job where you can make your own schedule and take rides when you'd like. So as for the existing platform, there are a few enhancements that we've identified that would be valuable, and I've separated them into 3 different sections to kind of group them because they have very similar antics about them. So the first one is data collection. The second one is app feature enhancement, and the third is streamlined processes. So as for data collection, data is one of the most valuable things out there these days, and Uber is not unique in the fact that they collect all of their data that they use in their apps, and they also use that data to make their app better. So one of the ways that we identified that they would help to use this data is for app personalization, And then, so basically they could gather data about consumer preferences as far as ordering habits, nutritional motivation and intention, diet, etc. And use that to recommend restaurants, recommend dishes, and so on. The second feature is the app feature enhancement, which goes along with data collection, but is separate because it's different enough. And this will just improve the in-app experience. This is focusing on the food order side of the app. And this one will use social food sharing section, which will just build upon the already very integrated system that is online and within app, and it will have its own section for you to share your food, for the restaurants to share your food, and this will create more engagement between people on the platform. And then second would be to add categories that would identify Black and female-owned businesses, and this is just one way to improve the agency for the person to like personify like the businesses on the platform, and also give recognition to the businesses that have worked hard and made triumphs in the industry. And then lastly is to streamline processes, and this goes along with each of the ones I've already talked about as well, about gathering data and using AI, and this would just be ways of improving the driver efficiency and routing, and also reminding people who usually use the service for catering to pre-order when there's holidays coming up. And so Uber Eats has the ability to plan and organize themselves when the busy season hits.
So we have learned a lot from taking this course, New Products and Innovation Management, and also specifically through the case study of Uber. Some of these key learnings include understanding the fact that optimal user experience and engagement is key to customer longevity for any given business, whether it's Uber or any other given enterprise that exists. Some other things that we have gained are knowledge of the PyX lens from our professor, what it means, and how we can use it for future case studies. And another important thing is solidified understanding of the risk managed levers, and both of the value enhancement slides were constructed through those levers. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to hearing your feedback.